Today, we're diving into one of history's great unsolved mysteries, a lost Bronze Age superpower, the incredible Indus-Sarasvati civilization.
You know, when you think of ancient empires, you probably picture pyramids built by slaves, right? Or maybe emperors on these huge golden thrones. Well, forget all that. The very first clue we get from this lost world points to something completely different. A society that was maybe built on balance, where the gap between the rich and the poor wasn't this massive divide. It's a 4,500-year-old idea that feels, well, surprisingly modern.
So you have these people who built these absolutely magnificent cities, and then, poof, they just vanished. They left behind way more questions than answers. So let's you and I piece together the evidence and try to figure out who these people really were.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, our story doesn't start with some ancient, dusty text. Nope. It starts with the spade and the brush of archaeologists, back in the early 1900s. These guys literally uncovered a civilization that had been completely lost to time. Now, to really get how important these guys were, you've got to look at the timeline. Their civilization was at its peak around 2600 BCE. So what does that mean? It means they were around at the exact same time as the pyramid builders in Egypt and the great cities of Mesopotamia. So yeah, they weren't some small, forgotten kingdom. They were a genuine superpower of the Bronze Age.
So what do we call them? Well, we call them the Harappans. And that name, it's pretty simple. It comes from the very first city they found, a place called Harappa in modern-day Pakistan. And that one discovery, man, it just blew the doors wide open to this entire lost world.
And let me tell you, this was no small kingdom. The Harappan world was huge. We're talking about a territory bigger than ancient Egypt. And it was all built around two massive river systems, the mighty Indus, which is still there today, and another one, the Saraswati, which has since vanished.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about their cities. Because honestly, this is where the Harappans just blow your mind. They weren't just slapping together some buildings. Oh no, they were engineering some of the most advanced, most sophisticated cities in the entire ancient world.
Just look at this. Seriously. This is a city called Kalibangan. What's the first thing you notice? The order, right? Everything is so precise. Their cities were planned out on this perfect grid system. Wide streets intersecting at perfect 90-degree angles. This didn't happen by accident. This was intelligent design, and on a massive, massive scale.
And get this, they were absolute masters of water. In one city, Dolavira, they carved this enormous reservoir right out of solid stone. It was 73 meters long. To put that in perspective, that's longer than a modern Olympic-sized swimming pool. And the crazy part? That was just one of their many water systems.
Their genius didn't stop there. It even extended to public health. I mean, almost every single house was connected to this incredible network of covered drains that ran under the streets. A citywide sanitation system. Think about that. We wouldn't see that level of hygiene in most of the world for thousands of years. It just goes to show you how much they cared about the well-being of everyone.
And then there's this. This is probably one of their most famous buildings, the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro. It's built so well, waterproofed with natural tar. Just amazing craftsmanship. But what was it for? A private pool for a king? A sacred tank for religious ceremonies? We just don't know. We do know that most houses had their own private bathrooms, so it wasn't for the general public to take a dip. Its real purpose? Yeah, that's still a total mystery.
So, you might be wondering, how did they support these incredible cities? Well, it all came back to the rivers. They were the engine that fueled their farming and, believe it or not, a global trade network that is just astonishing.
I mean, look at what they were eating. It was super diverse. You've got your standard grains like wheat and barley, lots of veggies, but they were also the very first people in all of Eurasia to grow cotton. And get this, scientists have analyzed their pottery and found traces of spices like turmeric and ginger. Talk about a sophisticated palate.
But they weren't just growing food for themselves. They were part of a massive, ancient supply chain. Just picture this for a second. You've got a skilled artisan, maybe in Gujarat, carving this beautiful, tiny bead out of a stone called carnelian. That one little bead gets loaded onto a boat, travels across the sea, maybe goes by caravan, and ends up in a market thousands of kilometers away in what we now call Iran or Oman. The reach was just incredible.
And how did they pull off all this sea trade? Well, check this out. At a city called Lothal, they built a gigantic dockyard. This thing was a massive basin, 217 meters long. That's like lining up more than 2 football fields end to end, all just to handle the ships that were the lifeblood of their entire economy.
Okay, so we've talked about the big stuff, the cities, the trade, but sometimes it's the smallest things that tell you the most. The little personal objects that give us a real intimate peek into their world, what they believed and what their daily lives were actually like.
Like, take this little guy. He's pretty famous. We call him the Priest King. But honestly, we have no clue who he's supposed to be. Is it a king, a god, a powerful priest? Look at that calm expression on his face. He is definitely not telling us his secrets. And then there's her, this tiny bronze statue, barely 11 centimeters high. But just look at her, the confidence, the attitude in that pose. It's amazing. And see her left arm? It's completely covered in bangles. That's a style you can still see women wearing today in places like Gujarat and Rajasthan. It's like a direct, unbroken line stretching back 4,000 years. Wow.
And it wasn't all serious business, work, and religion for them. Archaeologists have found actual toys, like little terracotta whistles. They've found game boards carved right into stone. It's just such a great reminder that these were real people, with kids who played and adults who had fun.
But if there's one thing they're known for, it's these. Thousands and thousands of these tiny little stone seals. Each one is a masterpiece of miniature art. They usually have an animal carved on them, like a unicorn or a bull, and then, right above it, a line of mysterious writing. They probably use them like stamps in business, to mark their property.
And that writing, that script, is the biggest mystery of all. We have thousands of examples of it, and yet, to this very day, nobody, not one single person, has been able to read it. It's like the voices of the Harappan people are trapped inside these little symbols, and we just can't find the key to unlock them.
So that brings us to the final, biggest question. Why? Why did this amazing civilization, with its incredible cities and its worldwide trade network, why did it all just fade away? Why did they just walk away from these great cities and leave them empty? For a long time, people thought, oh, they must have been invaded. But there's just no evidence for that. No burned cities, no big piles of weapons, nothing. The thinking now points to something that sounds, well, a little too familiar. Climate change. It looks like a massive drought hit the region. And even worse, that huge Sarasvati River, the one that supported hundreds of their towns, it just dried up. Gone.
So the big cities emptied out. People left, moved into smaller villages. But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. The people themselves didn't disappear, and their culture didn't just die. It changed, it adapted, it evolved. And that really leaves us with one final fascinating thought. How many echoes of this ancient, silent world can we still find around us today?